The cruelest people rarely expect to be remembered, but dogs do. The first bell at Crestwood Academy rang through the cold Virginia morning, sharp and silver, cutting across the campus like a warning no one wanted to hear. Expensive SUVs curved through the drop-off lane beneath rows of crimson maple trees. Engines purred. Doors opened. Students stepped out in navy blazers, polished shoes, and the kind of confidence money teaches early. Their laughter drifted through the October air as if nothing ugly could ever happen in a place that looked this beautiful. Crestwood looked perfect from the outside. Wealth usually does. Inside the cafeteria, the giant screen above the lunch hall flickered alive without warning. At first, no one understood what they were seeing. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Conversations died one table at a time. Then a video began playing across the wall, bright and enormous, impossible to ignore. Noah Bennett stumbled beside the lunch counter. His tray slipped from his hands. Milk burst across his gray school sweater. Ice scattered over the floor. Someone had slowed the footage down, so every second of his fall lasted longer than it should have. Then the edited music started. Circus music. A caption flashed over his head in red letters. Scholarship, kid down. The cafeteria exploded with laughter. Students slapped tables. Phones came out. A few people recorded the screen, and others recorded Noah's face as he stood near the lunch line, trapped inside his own humiliation. Near the center table, Madison Cole leaned back in her chair with the calm smile of someone used to controlling every room she entered. 17 years old, blonde hair curled perfectly over the shoulders of her navy blazer, diamond earrings catching the fluorescent light every time she turned her head. Madison was not just popular. She was protected. Her father, Commander Ryan Cole, was a decorated former Navy SEAL who now sat on the Academy's Security Advisory Board and consulted for a major defense systems company. Her mother served on charity committees and knew every important family in Arlington. At Crestwood, that kind of name did not open doors. It made doors unnecessary. Madison lifted her iced coffee slightly, almost like a toast. Maybe next time he'll learn how to walk, she said. More laughter rolled across the cafeteria. But Noah never looked up. That was the part nobody understood. He did not yell. He did not shove anyone. He did not even wipe the milk from his sleeve at first. He simply knelt on the cafeteria floor and gathered the broken pieces of his lunch tray while everyone watched. Dark circles sat beneath his eyes. His hands looked rough for a teenager, the knuckles dry and stained with faint traces of engine grease, no matter how often he washed them. His school sweater was clean but old, carefully repaired near one cuff. His shoes were polished but cracked along the sides. He looked less like a boy being embarrassed for the first time than someone who had learned long ago that pain became easier to survive when you gave it no performance. Then the camera in the video shifted. Just for 1 second. Near the cafeteria entrance, beside Officer Daniels from campus security, sat an old German shepherd wearing a faded service harness. His name was Atlas. Most students knew him as the retired military dog Commander Cole sometimes brought to campus for safety demonstrations, veterans events, and security training. Atlas was famous for ignoring almost everyone. He did not chase tennis balls. He did not beg for food. He did not like sudden noise. He watched the world as if every room might become a battlefield with no warning. But on the screen, as Noah knelt alone in the spilled milk, Atlas was staring directly at him. Not at the students laughing. Not at the food on the floor. At Noah. His amber eyes were still, deep, and almost painfully human. One ear twitched. That was all. Yet something about the way the old dog watched him made the laughter feel smaller. Colder. Less like a joke and more like evidence. Turn it off, one teacher muttered from the back wall. But she did not step forward. Madison rolled her eyes. Relax. It's just a joke. The video finally cut out. Noah stood slowly, clutching his soaked sweater against his chest. He picked up his backpack and walked toward the exit while whispers followed. Him across the tile. Trailer Park Noah. Bet he cried already. How does he even afford this place? As Noah passed the security office, Atlas rose. Officer Daniels frowned. Atlas. Stay. The old German shepherd did not obey. He walked toward Noah with the stiff, controlled movement of age and discipline. His harness was worn at the edges, the fabric faded from years of sun, sand, rain, and service. He stopped inches from Noah's hand. Noah froze. The cafeteria went strangely quiet. Atlas lowered his head and sniffed the air near Noah's wrist. Then, with a softness that did not fit his size, he pressed his nose against the boy's trembling hand. Madison laughed once under her breath. Even the dog feels sorry for him. But Officer Daniels was not laughing, because Atlas did not approach strangers. Not like that. Noah swallowed hard and whispered, "Hey, buddy." Atlas stared at him for another second. Then he stepped back. Outside, thunder rolled faintly beyond the Virginia hills. Noah left through the glass doors beneath a heavy gray sky. He crossed the parking lot to an old pickup truck parked near the far fence, the kind of truck that looked painfully out of place among cars worth more than most houses. Rust colored the wheel wells. Primer patches covered one door. The engine coughed before turning over. Before pulling away, Noah opened the glove compartment and placed a small orange prescription bottle inside. He looked at it for a long moment. Almost empty. From the cafeteria window, Atlas watched the truck disappear through the iron gate. The old dog made a low sound in his throat. Not a growl. Not a bark. Something sadder. Like a memory beginning to wake up. By dismissal, rain had turned the Crestwood parking lot into a blur of silver reflections and glowing brake lights. Students hurried into luxury sedans, complaining about wet shoes and canceled tennis practice, never looking twice at the soaked boy tightening a loose battery cable under the hood of an aging pickup near the far fence. Noah wiped grease from his hands with a shop towel already stained black from weeks of use. The cold wind slipped through his damp sweater, but he barely reacted. Exhaustion had become part of his posture. Inside the truck, a pharmacy receipt sat folded beside utility bills and a reminder from his mother's kidney specialist. 2 copays were past due. 1 prescription refill was waiting. A transportation bill from a clinic sat beneath everything else, circled in red ink. Noah had $31 in his checking account. $31, and 8 days until payday. He shoved the papers back into the glove compartment and started the engine. Across the lot, Madison stood beneath the covered entrance with her friends, safe from the rain. Her white sneakers remained spotless. Somehow everything around Madison always stayed spotless. "Did you see his face?" Brittany laughed. "I thought he was going to cry." Madison smirked while scrolling through comments under the cafeteria video. The clip had already spread through 3 neighboring schools. Laughing emojis. Fire emojis. Comments from people who did not know Noah, but had already decided he deserved to be mocked. One comment read, "Scholarship kids should know their place." Madison tapped like. Yet even as she did, her eyes moved toward Noah's truck rolling slowly toward the road. Something about his silence bothered her. Anger would have been easier. If he had yelled, cursed, threatened her, she could have called him unstable. If he had cried, she could have called him weak. But Noah had done neither. He had simply endured her. And somehow, that made her feel smaller instead of stronger. "Madison." Brittany nudged her. "You okay?" "Fine," Madison said quickly. "People are too sensitive." Near the administration building, Atlas lay beneath the awning beside Officer Daniels. His head rested on his paws until Noah's truck passed the gate. Then his ears lifted. His eyes followed the vehicle until it vanished into the rain. Officer Daniels looked down at him. "What is with you today?" Atlas made that low sound again. Recognition. Not fear. Recognition. 30 minutes later, Noah pulled into the cracked gravel driveway of a faded trailer tucked behind an old service station 12 miles from school. Rainwater dripped from rusted gutters. The porch sagged slightly beneath. Dead flower pots his mother still refused to throw away. He grabbed a grocery bag from the passenger seat and hurried inside. The trailer smelled like coffee, laundry detergent, and antiseptic. Warm. Familiar. "Home." "Mom," he called. A weak voice answered from the kitchen. "In here, honey." Laura Bennett sat at the tiny table wrapped in a blanket despite the heat running. She was 43, but illness had aged her in unfair ways. Her skin looked pale beneath the yellow kitchen light. Dark shadows rested under blue eyes that still held kindness no sickness had managed to erase. She smiled when she saw him. "You're late." Noah forced a smile back. Truck needed help starting again. He unpacked the groceries. Soup cans. Bread. Generic cereal. The orange juice she liked, but never bought for herself anymore. Laura noticed the damp stain on his sweater sleeve. "Bad day?" she asked gently. Noah paused for half a second. "Just school stuff." She studied him. Mothers always hear what sons do not say. "Noah." His shoulders lowered. "It's nothing, Mom." Laura reached across the table and touched his hand. Her fingers felt colder than usual. You don't have to carry everything alone. Noah looked toward the rain streaking the kitchen window. I know, but he did carry everything alone. Every early morning, making sure his mother ate before school. Every afternoon at Parker's auto shop, where he cleaned bays, filed parts, and helped with supervised repairs for a few legal hours after class. Every weekend shift. Every late night, studying at the kitchen table while his mother slept in the next room. Every bill hidden before she could see it. He had become very good at making survival look ordinary. That evening, while Laura rested, Noah sat at the kitchen table filling out a refill form online when his phone buzzed. An email from Crestwood Academy. Mandatory disciplinary hearing. Tomorrow morning. Incident involving cafeteria video. Parent or guardian requested. Noah stared at the screen. His mother could barely make it through a grocery trip. She could not sit in a polished conference room while rich parents pretended cruelty was a misunderstanding. He closed the laptop. Outside, rain hammered harder against the windows. Across town, Commander Ryan Cole stood inside his home office, staring at the same email forwarded to him by the school principal. His daughter's name appeared in the first paragraph. Madison Cole. His jaw tightened. He had seen bullying before. He had seen arrogance dressed as confidence. He had seen young people raised without consequences grow into adults who caused real damage. But one detail in the report held him still. Victim, Noah Bennett. Bennett. Ryan read the name again. On the rug beside his desk, Atlas suddenly lifted his head. Ryan looked toward the dog. You noticed it too, didn't you? Atlas stood slowly, crossed the office, and pressed his nose against a locked storage chest beneath the window. Ryan did not move for several seconds. Then he opened the chest. Inside were old deployment records, folded flags, worn photographs, and things he had avoided touching for years. He lifted one photograph from the top. 3 men stood beside a dusty transport vehicle under a white desert sun. A younger Ryan Cole, a combat medic named Daniel Bennett, and Atlas, young then, alert and fearless, standing between them. Ryan looked at the photograph, then at the name on the email. Noah Bennett. His throat tightened. No, he whispered. Atlas gave a soft whine. Ryan reached for his phone. He did not have Noah's address. He did not ask the school for private information. Instead, he called Officer Daniels, who had known every scholarship student and every security concern on campus for years. Tell me something, Ryan said carefully. The boy from the cafeteria video. Noah Bennett. Does his mother happen to be named Laura? There was a pause. I can't give out student information, Commander. I'm not asking for an address, Ryan said. I'm asking because I may have known his father. Another silence. Then Daniels sighed. The guardian listed in the hearing email is Laura Bennett. That's all I can say. Ryan closed his eyes. 11 years of memory came back at once. Dust. Blood. A medic's steady hands. Atlas crying in the dark. Daniel Bennett's voice saying, if my boy ever needs help and I'm not there, promise me. You'll look. Ryan had promised. Then life moved forward. Names changed. Files disappeared. Grief became paperwork. Daniel's family became one of many families he meant to find and never did. Until a cafeteria full of laughing teenagers forced the past back into the light. Ryan did not sleep after that. For almost an hour, he sat in the dark office with the photograph on his desk and Atlas lying at his feet. The house around him was quiet in the expensive way large homes are quiet. Thick walls, soft carpets, distant heating vents, every sound swallowed before it could echo. Yet Ryan could hear Afghanistan as clearly as if the desert were outside his window. He heard the rotor wash from evacuation helicopters that arrived too late. He heard men shouting through dust. He heard Atlas whimpering when shrapnel tore through his hind leg. And beneath all of it, he heard Daniel Bennett's voice, steady as a hand on a shaking shoulder. Stay with me, Commander. Look at the dog. He's still fighting, so you fight too. Ryan pressed both hands against his face. He had spent years believing he was good at honoring the dead. He donated to veteran groups. He spoke at memorials. He shook hands with families and knew exactly which words sounded respectful without sounding empty. But Daniel Bennett had not asked him for a speech. Daniel had asked him to look after his family if they ever needed help. And Ryan had not looked hard enough. At 8:47 that night, his phone rang. The caller ID showed Crestwood Academy's administrative office. The principal's assistant had connected Laura Bennett because the hearing notice required a guardian acknowledgement. Ryan stood before answering. This is Commander Cole. A tired woman's voice came through the line. This is Laura Bennett. The school said you asked to speak with me. Is Noah in trouble? The fear in her voice was quiet, practiced, and immediate. Ryan closed his eyes. No, ma'am. Not with me. There was a pause. Then why are you calling? Ryan looked down at the photograph on his desk. Because I served with your husband. Silence. Not empty silence. The kind of silence that happens when grief stands up suddenly in a room where it has been sitting quietly for years. When Laura spoke again, her voice was smaller. Daniel? Yes, ma'am. Another pause. Ryan could hear her breathing change. No one from his unit has called in years, she whispered. The sentence struck him harder than accusation. I know, Ryan said. And I am sorry. He did not explain. Not yet. Explanations often try to protect the person giving them. Laura asked, did Noah do something wrong? No, Ryan said. Someone did something wrong to Noah. My daughter was part of it. The line went quiet again. Ryan forced himself to continue. I would like to come by tonight, if you are comfortable with that. I will not ask for anything from you. I only want to bring something that belonged to the truth. A photograph. And maybe an apology that is 11 years late. Laura did not answer immediately. Then she said, Noah hates people seeing how we live. Ryan looked around his office. Leather chair, framed medals, shelves of books, walls filled with proof that he had survived and prospered. Then I will come as someone who owes your family respect, he said. Not judgment. 40 minutes later, Ryan's black Ford truck turned onto the cracked gravel drive behind the old service station. Rain had softened into mist. The trailer's porch light flickered above peeling paint. Atlas sat upright in the passenger seat, body tense, eyes fixed on the door before Ryan even parked. Easy, Ryan murmured. But Atlas was not restless now. He was certain. Noah opened the door before Ryan knocked twice. His eyes moved first to Atlas, then to Ryan, then to the truck behind him. Commander Cole? Ryan removed his cap. Noah, I'm sorry to come so late. I spoke with your mother. Noah's shoulders tightened at once. Is this about school? Partly. Atlas stepped forward and pressed his nose into Noah's hand, the same gentle gesture from the cafeteria. Noah stared down at him, confused by the old dog's certainty. Behind Noah, Laura appeared at the kitchen doorway wrapped in a blanket. Ryan stepped inside only after she nodded. The trailer was small, clean, and worn in the way places become worn when people are doing their best. A stack of medical papers sat beneath a magnet on the refrigerator. Work boots dried near the door. A pot of soup rested on the stove. Nothing about the home invited pity. Everything about it asked to be understood. Atlas crossed the room slowly and stopped beside Laura's chair. For 1 second she looked afraid. Then the old German shepherd lowered himself gently and rested his head near her knee. Laura's hand trembled as she touched his ears. You knew Daniel, she whispered to the dog, not to Ryan. Atlas closed his eyes. Ryan placed the photograph on the kitchen table. Noah moved closer without meaning to. The boy's face changed the moment he saw it. Dad, he breathed. The word was so soft it almost disappeared. Laura covered her mouth. In the photo, Daniel Bennett stood under a desert sun with one hand on Atlas's harness and the other lifted awkwardly toward the camera, as if he hated being photographed but wanted his son to see him smiling someday. He saved my life, Ryan said. Noah did not look away from the image. How? Ryan sat only after Laura gestured to the chair. Then he told them. Not the polished version used at memorial events. Not the clean version with words like sacrifice and service arranged safely around the pain. He told them about Sanjin province in the summer of 2011. About a collapsed wall during extraction. About smoke so thick men crawled toward voices because they could not see hands in front of their faces. About Atlas bleeding and refusing to leave Ryan's side. About Daniel Bennett running toward the sound when everyone else was being ordered back. Your father was calm, Ryan said to Noah. Not because he wasn't afraid. Only fools aren't afraid. He was calm because someone needed him to be. Noah's eyes shone, but he did not blink. Ryan looked toward Laura. He talked about you both. He said his wife could make weak coffee taste like home. He said his boy could take apart toy trucks faster than he could buy them. A broken laugh escaped Laura, half grief and half memory. Noah looked down at his grease-stained hands. I don't remember that. He did, Ryan said. And Atlas does too, in the way dogs remember. Not facts. Not dates. Feelings. Scent. Voice. Safety. Atlas lifted his head at his name, then pushed his muzzle gently against Noah's knee. Ryan noticed the bills near the refrigerator. He noticed the careful way Noah moved between his mother and the table, always watching whether she needed water, whether the blanket had slipped, whether her breathing changed. He also noticed the shame that crossed Noah's face when he realized Ryan had seen those things. "Don't," Ryan said quietly. Noah looked at him. "Don't be ashamed of surviving." The kitchen went silent. Noah swallowed. "I don't want people feeling sorry for us." "Good," Ryan replied. "Pity is cheap. Respect costs more." Laura wiped her eyes. Ryan slid the photograph across the table toward Noah. "This belongs with you." Noah touched the edge of the picture as if it might vanish. "Why now?" he asked. Ryan accepted the question because he deserved it. "Because I failed to find you sooner," he said. "And because today an old dog remembered a debt better than I did." Outside, rain tapped softly against the trailer windows. Inside, no one spoke for a long time. When Ryan finally stood to leave, Noah followed him to the porch. Atlas remained between them, reluctant to step away. The night smelled of wet gravel, pine, and distant gasoline from the abandoned station. Ryan looked toward the academy, hearing notice still glowing on Noah's phone through the window. "Tomorrow will be hard," he said. Noah's jaw tightened. "I don't want my dad used like a weapon." Ryan nodded slowly. "Neither do I." "Then why tell them?" Ryan looked at him through the mist. "Because truth is not a weapon when it protects someone from a lie. They have been calling you weak, poor, and out of place. Tomorrow they need to learn that they were standing beside courage the whole time and were too shallow to recognize it." Noah stared toward the dark road. "I still don't want pity." "Then don't take it," Ryan said. "Take respect. That's what your father earned. That's what you earned too." Atlas pressed his shoulder against Noah's leg as if agreeing. For the first time all day, Noah let himself breathe. The next morning arrived cold and gray over Crestwood Academy. Fog clung low across the football field. Breath turned white beneath the oak trees lining the main entrance. Cars rolled through the gates one after another while students hurried inside, phones glowing in their hands. Everyone had heard about the hearing. Everyone wanted to know what would happen. Inside the administrative wing, the conference room lights burned sharp against polished mahogany walls. Framed photographs of successful graduates smiled down from every side, the faces of judges, CEOs, senators, and donors frozen in permanent approval. The school board members sat around the long table pretending professionalism while whispers moved between them. The video had spread beyond Crestwood overnight. Parents were angry. Alumni were calling. Local reporters had begun asking careful questions. Crestwood cared deeply about morality when reputation was involved. Madison sat at the far end beside her mother, Vanessa Cole. Vanessa's cream-colored coat looked expensive enough to pay Noah's bills for a month. Her pearl necklace rested perfectly against her collar. She leaned toward Madison and whispered, "Do not get emotional. We will handle this." Madison nodded, but her stomach felt tight. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Atlas staring at Noah through the cafeteria crowd. Across the room, Noah entered alone. No lawyer. No angry parent. No dramatic speech prepared. Just a tired 17-year-old wearing his school blazer over a repaired sweater, carrying too much responsibility in his eyes. He sat near the corner beneath the academy crest. His hands rested calmly in his lap, though the skin around his knuckles was still rough and cracked from cold shop work. A board member looked surprised. "Will your mother be joining us, Mr. Bennett?" Noah shook his head. "She's not feeling well." The answer was polite. Too polite. Then the conference room doors opened again. Atlas entered first. The old German shepherd moved across the polished floor with calm purpose, his faded service harness secured across his broad shoulders. Every conversation stopped. Ryan Cole followed him. He wore dark jeans, weathered boots, and a charcoal jacket. His hair was shorter than most. Father's in that room, gray threaded through black. His face carried the kind of stillness that made people lower their voices without knowing why. Madison looked up, relief beginning to flicker across her face. But Ryan did not look at her. He walked directly to Noah. Atlas lowered himself beside Noah's chair without command. Ryan stopped next to them both. "Morning, son," he said quietly. Noah looked startled. "Morning, sir." Confusion moved around the room. Vanessa straightened. "Ryan, what exactly is going on?" Ryan turned toward the table. You wanted a disciplinary hearing, he said. So let's have an honest one. The principal cleared his throat. Commander Cole, we appreciate your attendance, but this matter concerns inappropriate student conduct and reputational bullying, Ryan interrupted. The room went still. The word you're looking for is bullying. Nobody answered. Ryan placed the old photograph on the center of the table. The one from Afghanistan. Dusty vehicle. Young soldier. Combat medic. Military dog. Several board members leaned forward. Madison frowned. What is that? Ryan looked at his daughter for the first time since entering. The disappointment in his eyes hit harder than anger. That, he said softly, is Daniel Bennett. Noah's breath caught. Ryan continued. 11 years ago, Daniel Bennett saved my life overseas. He saved Atlas too. Silence fell so completely that the heating vents seemed loud. Vanessa blinked. Wait, you know this boy? Ryan's jaw tightened. I knew his father. Atlas rested his head against Noah's leg beneath the table, as if he understood every word. Ryan looked around the room. Yesterday, while students laughed at a boy trying to hold himself together on a cafeteria floor, that boy was going home to care for a sick parent, work after school, and keep his family from falling apart. Faces shifted around the table. Madison looked at Noah, then down at her hands. Ryan turned to the principal. Play the video. The principal hesitated. Commander, I don't think. Play it. The room obeyed him before anyone agreed to. The cafeteria footage appeared on the wall. Noah stumbling. Milk splashing. The tray breaking. Laughter echoing from the speakers. Circus music turning a real person's pain into entertainment. Madison went pale. Ryan watched without blinking. Atlas lowered his ears at the sound of the laughter. When the video showed Noah kneeling alone in the spilled milk, Ryan said, Pause it. The image froze. Noah crouched beneath fluorescent lights, surrounded by students who had mistaken cruelty for comedy. Ryan stepped closer to the screen. Do you know what I see? No one answered. He pointed toward Noah. I see a boy trying very hard not to become bitter. The words landed harder than shouting could have. Ryan turned back to the room. Every adult at this school has spent years teaching students how to look successful, how to get into the right college, how to speak well, dress well, win well. His voice stayed calm, but almost no one here taught them how to recognize dignity when it was kneeling right in front of them. An older board member lowered his eyes. The principal removed his glasses. Vanessa folded her arms. Ryan, Madison made a mistake. Teenagers do stupid things. We can apologize privately and move forward. Ryan turned slowly toward her. People apologize privately when the damage was private. Madison's eyes filled. Her father did not raise his voice. That made it worse. He looked at Madison. Stand up. She did. Her legs trembled slightly. Look at him. Madison turned toward Noah. Noah looked uncomfortable, not triumphant. Somehow that made her shame sharper. Ryan's voice softened, but did not weaken. That boy wakes up before sunrise to help his mother. After school, he works legally supervised hours at an auto shop, then goes home to cook dinner, fill out medical forms, and study while the rest of you are posting jokes. Madison swallowed hard. Dad, Ryan lifted one hand gently. No, not yet. Listening is part of accountability. The room stayed silent. Ryan looked back at the frozen image on the screen. Noah's father once crawled through smoke and dust to reach me after an explosion collapsed part of a compound wall. He treated my wounds while Atlas was bleeding beside us. He stayed calm when everything around us was falling apart. That kind of courage does not always look heroic in the moment. Sometimes it looks like a tired kid in a school cafeteria refusing to hate people who are laughing at him. Noah lowered his eyes. Madison's tears spilled over. Ryan finally stepped away from the screen. Madison, he said. She looked at him. Strength is not making someone feel small. Real strength is making sure the people around you feel safe. Atlas rose from beside Noah and crossed the room. Several adults tensed, but the old shepherd simply stopped beside Madison's chair and rested his head against her knee. Madison stared at him in disbelief. Then she covered her mouth as tears slid down her face. Ryan watched the dog quietly. Atlas spent years protecting people in places most of us will never understand, he said. And somehow he still learned more compassion than half this room. Nobody spoke. Outside the windows, the fog began lifting from the football field, exposing everything morning had tried to hide. The hearing did not end with screaming. It ended with consequences. Madison was suspended from student council, assigned restorative service with the school counselor's supervision, required to issue a public apology, and ordered to participate in a digital responsibility program that included removing every repost she could identify. The students who helped film and edit the video faced consequences too. Crestwood released a carefully worded statement about dignity, community, and accountability. The statement was not perfect. Institutions rarely confess cleanly. But something had changed. By lunchtime, the cafeteria felt different. Conversations softened when Noah walked in. Some students looked away in shame. Others stared openly, trying to reconcile the quiet mechanic kid in the repaired sweater with the son of a combat medic who had once saved a Navy SEAL and a military dog overseas. Noah hated the attention. He carried a paper bag toward the far corner table near the vending machines. Inside was a peanut butter sandwich, apple slices wrapped in foil, and one small bottle of orange juice. Across the cafeteria, Madison stood near her usual table. Her friends hovered around her, suddenly. Unsure what loyalty was supposed to look like when popularity became uncomfortable. Brittany whispered, "Maybe you should apologize." Madison nodded. "I know." But fear held her still. Not fear of punishment. Fear of facing the person she had hurt. Near the entrance, Atlas stood beside Officer Daniels. The old dog watched Noah sit alone, then crossed the cafeteria without command. Conversations faded. Atlas stopped beside Noah and rested his chin on the boy's knee. Noah smiled faintly for the first time that day. "Hey, buddy." Atlas's tail moved once against the tile. Then Madison began walking toward them. Slowly. Alone. Every eye followed her. Noah straightened. Madison stopped a few feet from the table. Without her usual bright confidence, she looked younger. Not powerful. Not untouchable. Just a 17-year-old girl realizing too late that jokes can leave bruises nobody sees. "Can I sit down?" she asked. Noah hesitated. Then he nodded once. She sat across from him while the cafeteria held its breath. For several seconds, Madison stared at her hands. "I don't really know how to do this," she admitted. Noah said nothing. She took a shaky breath. "What I did to you was cruel. Not funny. Not a joke. Cruel." Her voice nearly broke. "I kept telling myself it was fine because people were laughing. But people laughing does not make something harmless. It just means more people chose not to care." Noah looked at his sandwich. "Why did you hate me so much?" The question was quiet. That made it hit harder. Madison blinked quickly. "I didn't hate you." Noah gave a tired laugh. "Could have fooled me." She lowered her eyes. "You never acted impressed by any of us," she whispered. "The cars. The clothes. The parties. The names. You looked at it like it didn't matter." She swallowed. "And I think that made me angry because deep down I knew you were stronger than we were." Noah frowned. "Stronger?" Madison nodded weakly. "You never begged people to like you." Atlas rested between them beneath the table while pale sunlight pushed through the windows. Noah leaned back slowly. "My dad used to say people throw stones at things they secretly envy." Madison's face tightened with shame. "Your father sounds wiser than me." A sad smile touched Noah's mouth. "Yeah," he said. "He was." Madison reached into her blazer pocket and placed her phone on the table. "I deleted the original video. I reported every repost I could find. I know that doesn't erase what happened." She looked at him directly. "But I'm going to keep removing it until it stops moving. And I'm going to say sorry publicly, not because my father told me to, but because I should have had the courage to do it before anyone made me." Noah studied her for a long moment. "I'm not ready to say it's okay." Madison nodded immediately. "I don't deserve that." Noah looked down at Atlas leaning against his leg. "But I heard you." For Madison, it was more grace than she expected. Across the cafeteria, Ryan watched from near the doorway. Vanessa stood beside him with her arms folded. "You embarrassed her," she said quietly. Ryan did not look away from his daughter sitting across from Noah. "No," he replied. "Truth embarrassed her. That's different." 3 days later, Crestwood Academy held its annual Veterans Appreciation Assembly. American flags lined the entrance walkway beneath bright orange maple trees. Students filled the auditorium in pressed uniforms and polished shoes. Usually, the event felt ceremonial more than meaningful. Speeches, applause, carefully rehearsed patriotism lasting exactly one class period before everyone returned to ordinary life. But this year felt different from the moment students entered. The cafeteria incident had shifted the atmosphere in ways no one could fully explain. Students held doors open more often. Teachers asked Noah how his mother was doing and waited for the real answer. Nobody laughed when grease marked his hands anymore. They understood those hands carried more than oil. Backstage, Noah adjusted the sleeves of a borrowed dress shirt while trying to calm the knot in his stomach. Ryan stood nearby, fastening Atlas's ceremonial service harness across the old German shepherd's chest. Small patches rested along the fabric, worn from years of use. Atlas remained perfectly calm despite the rumble of hundreds of voices beyond the curtain. "You don't have to go out there," Ryan said. Noah shook his head. "I'm okay." Ryan studied him. "You are a terrible liar." Noah smiled faintly. "Maybe." Ryan finished adjusting the harness and rested one hand along Atlas's neck. "Your father hated public speaking too," he said. Said silence usually sounded smarter. Noah looked down. "I wish I remembered him better." The words came out softer than he intended. Ryan's expression changed. "You remember more than you think," he said. "Good people leave fingerprints on the soul." Atlas nudged Noah's hand beneath the stage light. Noah scratched behind his ears, and for 1 second the nervousness eased. On stage, the principal's voice echoed through the auditorium. "This morning, we honor sacrifice, service, and the quiet courage that often goes unseen." Polite applause rolled through the crowd. In the front row, Madison sat beside her mother wearing a simple navy sweater instead of her usual jewelry. She looked different now, quieter, more present. Vanessa sat stiffly beside her, but even she seemed subdued. Ryan exhaled. "Ready?" Noah nodded. The auditorium lights dimmed. The principal stepped aside. Ryan, Noah, and Atlas walked onto the stage together. A hush moved instantly across the room. Atlas's nails clicked softly against the wooden floor while warm stage lights reflected across his sable coat. Ryan approached the podium and stood there for several seconds, not searching for words, respecting them. "Most people think courage looks loud," he said into the microphone. "Movies teach us that courage is dramatic, fearless, untouchable." He glanced toward Noah. "But after 20 years serving beside men and dogs better than myself, I learned something different." The auditorium remained still. Real courage is usually exhausted. It wakes up early. It works late. It keeps showing kindness long after life becomes unfair. Noah lowered his eyes under the lights. Ryan reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out an old digital recorder, scratched from years of storage. "There is something I want you to hear." He pressed play. Static crackled through the speakers. Wind. Distant shouting. Then a voice emerged. Calm. Steady. "Daniel. Bennett." "Easy, buddy," the voice said through the damaged audio. "You're okay, Atlas. I got you." The old German shepherd lifted his head sharply. A low sound escaped his throat. Not a bark. Recognition. The auditorium fell breathlessly silent. Daniel's recorded voice continued beneath the wind and chaos. "Get the dog out first." "He's scared." "I've got Commander Cole." "Move." Atlas stepped forward under the lights, ears twitching, searching for the man whose voice had crossed 11 years to find him again. Noah pressed one trembling hand against his mouth. Ryan's eyes shone, though his voice remained steady when he spoke after the recording ended. That audio was captured during a recovery report less than an hour before Daniel Bennett died. He was a medic. He was a father. He was the kind of man who saw fear in a wounded dog and still had enough compassion left to comfort him while saving my life. Madison cried openly in the front row. Ryan looked across the auditorium. The world teaches young people to admire popularity, but popularity fades. Character does not. His gaze moved to Noah. Some people carry greatness quietly. Sometimes they sit beside you in class. Sometimes they drive old trucks. Sometimes they wear repaired sweaters and never tell you what they survived because they do not want pity. Noah's face tightened with emotion. Atlas returned to him and rested his head against the teenager's chest. The old dog closed his eyes beneath Noah's touch as if, for one brief moment, Daniel Bennett had come home through sound, memory, and love. Nobody clapped at first. The silence felt too sacred. Then one student stood, then another, then an entire row. Within seconds, the whole auditorium rose to its feet, not with wild cheering, but with the quiet respect Noah had never asked for and always deserved. Noah looked around in stunned disbelief. For the first time since losing his father, the lonely weight he had carried did not feel quite so heavy. Winter arrived slowly over Arlington that year, painting mornings silver with frost and wrapping the streets in the scent of chimney smoke and pine. The maple trees outside Crestwood Academy had surrendered their leaves. Exams approached. Students worried about grades, college essays, relationships, and futures that still felt safely distant. Life moved on, but not everything returned to what it had been. Noah still drove the rusted pickup. It still coughed twice before starting. The heater still barely worked unless he tapped the dashboard near the radio. His mother's illness did not vanish because people finally noticed him. Bills did not disappear because an auditorium stood up. That would have been too easy. Real life rarely changes that cleanly. But help began arriving in small, practical ways. A school counselor connected Laura Bennett with a patient assistance program for medication copays and transportation vouchers. A local Veterans Foundation reviewed Daniel's service records and found survivor benefits Laura had never known how to claim. Parker, the auto shop owner, adjusted Noah's shifts so he could study without losing the job he needed. And at Crestwood, students started a medical support fund through official channels, supervised by adults, not for pity, but because they finally understood that community means more than posting inspirational quotes during assemblies. One cold afternoon near Christmas break, Noah stepped out of Parker's auto shop just after sunset. Snow drifted through the orange glow of street lamps. His shoulders ached from a long day cleaning tools, organizing parts, and helping finish a brake job under supervision. He pulled his coat tighter and walked toward his truck. Then he stopped. Madison stood beside it wearing a long navy coat, snowflakes gathering in her hair. Atlas sat beside her under the streetlight, older beneath the winter glow but peaceful. Noah looked surprised. "What are you doing here?" Madison held up a paper bag from the diner across the street. "Your mom told my dad you skipped lunch again. I brought food. Before you argue, it's just a sandwich, not charity." Noah sighed. "She worries too much." "She's a mom," Madison said. "That's basically the job." Atlas walked toward Noah and pressed his head gently against the boy's side. Noah scratched behind the old dog's ears. Madison smiled faintly. "You know he likes you. More than my entire family now. I think he just feels bad for me." "No," another voice said. Ryan stepped from near the shop entrance, carrying 2 cardboard coffee cups. Atlas stays close to people he trusts. Snow crunched beneath his boots as he approached. He handed 1 cup to Noah. "Black. No sugar." Noah blinked. "How did you know?" Ryan shrugged slightly. "Your father drank it the same way." For a moment, none of them spoke. Steam curled from the coffee cups into the cold air. Then Madison reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a large envelope. "This came today," she said, handing it to Noah. He frowned and opened it. Inside was official Crestwood stationery embossed in silver. Full scholarship renewal. Transportation assistance. Emergency family support grant. Noah read the page once. Then again. His throat tightened. "I didn't apply for this." Ryan looked toward the falling snow instead of at him. "Some people notice quiet battles." Noah looked between them. "You did this." Ryan shook his head. "Not alone." Madison's voice softened. "The senior class raised part of it after the assembly. The foundation covered the rest. Everything is through the school office. No strings." Noah stared at the letter. "Why?" Madison looked at him with tears bright in her eyes. But this time, she did not look away. "Because people finally saw you." Atlas lowered himself carefully onto the snow-dusted pavement beside Noah's boots with a tired sigh. His muzzle had grown wider over the past few weeks. Age was catching him gently now. Noah noticed. Ryan noticed Noah noticing. "Vet says his hips are getting worse," Ryan admitted. Noah crouched beside Atlas immediately, rubbing slowly along the shepherd's neck. "Hey, buddy. You're okay." Atlas leaned into his hand and closed his eyes. Ryan's voice lowered. "You know the strange thing? After everything Atlas survived overseas, after all the years of noise and smoke and commands, this is the happiest I've seen him in a long time." Noah swallowed against the ache rising in his chest. "Maybe he remembers my dad." Ryan nodded. "I think he remembers how your father made people feel. Safe. Seen. Worth saving." The words lingered in the cold night. Across the street, Christmas lights glowed warmly in diner windows. Somewhere inside, people laughed over ordinary dinners, unaware of the quiet healing happening in the snow outside. Noah looked down at the scholarship letter, then at Atlas resting beside his boots. For years, Grief had felt like standing outside a warm house, watching life happen through frozen glass. But now something had changed. Not all at once. Not magically. Just slowly. The way real healing usually arrives. Ryan placed a hand on Noah's shoulder. Your father would be proud of you. Noah stared into the snowfall. I hope so. Ryan smiled faintly. Son, good men don't disappear when they die. They stay in the people they saved, the kindness they taught, and the courage their children keep choosing when nobody is watching. Atlas slowly lifted his head and placed one tired paw across Noah's boot, as if making an old promise new again. Madison stood quietly beside them, no longer trying to be admired, only trying to be better. Ryan looked toward the sky. Noah looked at the dog who had remembered what everyone else had forgotten. And beneath the falling snow, surrounded not by wealth or status, but by something stronger, Noah Bennett finally understood what his father had been trying to teach him all along. The strongest people in the world are rarely the loudest. They are the ones who suffer and still choose kindness. They are the ones who are hurt and still refuse to become cruel. And sometimes, when people forget that kind of courage, an old dog remembers.